I'm very pleased to be here and to represent the work of a lot of different folks who are working very hard to move this leading indicator, this social determinant. Let me give you an overview, if I could, of first our organization and the work we do. Next slide, please. IRRE is a non-for-profit organization, and we created and developed this framework called First Things First. We do partner with districts and states across the country to plan and implement the reform primarily of secondary schools. Next slide, please. The framework itself is called First Things First, and on the next slide you'll see the basic elements of First Things First are that it's comprehensive and that we address the issues that face young people, and particularly young people in economically disadvantaged communities. The vast majority of our partners, including those who are represented today by Mary and Randy, serve high populations of poor and minority students with high concentrations of English as second language as well as special education students. But this is a comprehensive reform framework that is developed to raise students' academic performance and commitment to the levels that are required now for post-secondary education and high-quality employment. Next slide, please. Let me just go to the bottom line. Based on the research that we've done on our own work and others' work over the last 15 years, it's clear that three elements are going to have to be there in order to really meaningfully change the likelihood that young people will finish high school successfully. First is to change the quality of relationships among young people and adults at school and at home. We put this first because we have some issues that are foundational. Before we move on to the core work of teaching and learning, we have to recognize the fact that many of the students that are attending the schools that are having the biggest struggles with graduation, there are massive differences in both the race, the class, and the geographical location and residency of the folks who work in the school and the young people and the families who attend the school. And we can't just push these under the rug. We have to actually stand up and face these differences and bridge these gaps. And that's going to mean changing the quality of relationships, of trust, of mutual accountability, and of putting people together for longer periods of time so that they can get to know each other and then focus on this second issue, which is to change the quality of teaching and learning in every classroom every day. Of course, these are occurring at the same time, but we wanted to make explicit that we have to make it as part of our intention with any kind of intervention in schools. We have to understand that we have to address the issues of race and class. And finally, we have to redirect the political, financial, and human resources to make these first two things happen. We can't just sit there with the same kind of decision-making, the same kind of allocation of money, and the same human resources and expect to make major changes in these first two things. So this is really the overview of the intent of First Things First. Next slide, please. What I want to do is to show some information that I think will be quite encouraging for those of us who work in secondary schools. There was a comprehensive study done by Hank Levin, who is a very well-known education economist at Columbia University, and looked at a widely diverse range of interventions that are attempting to change graduation rates. They culled from all of these interventions those that had evidence that they actually had impact on graduation rates, and then did an economic analysis to look at the cost-benefit ratios involved with each of those interventions. And you can see they range from things like class size reduction to, in our case, our comprehensive school reform program, and everything in between. And the good news for the high school reform folks, and this was actually surprising to me because a lot of the zeitgeist has been in the past that early interventions are going to make a bigger difference and be more cost-effective. In this study, however, all of these were cost-effective relative to doing nothing, of course, but in terms of bang for the buck, it looks like the high school reform initiative, in this case the First Things First initiative, was the most cost-effective in terms of how much was spent and the social benefit in terms of the cost dollars saved by increasing graduation rates. Next slide, please. What I want to do is show some data now, and much of these data come from the district that Mary Stewart represents, the Kansas City, Kansas School District, where it was a district-wide reform. All the high schools participated in this First Things First framework. And first off, I want to hear from the voices of the students. These are student surveys that were given longitudinally for a large number of years over the course of this longitudinal evaluation. And what it shows is a dramatic drop in the percentage of students who are saying they are disaffected with school. And we know from the research that students' attitudes and beliefs and motivation are an important determinant of high school graduation. So this was our, if you will, leading indicator of the leading indicator, which is that we saw this drop in the students' disaffection. That is, less students saying they were bored with school, that nobody cared about them, and that they didn't find anything that was meaningful to them. Next slide, please. And here is the graduation rate. Again, we've used a 3-year moving average, which really is a more conservative estimate of the trend. And what you can see is as the red moves to yellow, the red is pre-intervention and the yellow is post-intervention. And you can see a dramatic increase over this time period up to approximately, and Mary can give you more updated information beyond these years, but these were where the evaluation was occurring, up to just about that the level that we were talking about before in terms of a threshold, from as low as in the close to half the kids not graduating.